George Bruno with the 21 Report in Orlando, Florida. And we're talking with Dr. Robert Glover. He was just whisked off stage, and now we're going to talk to him about his message for men. Welcome.
Good to be here, George.
What is your impression of the 21 convention here so far? You've been around here.
It's blown me away. I've been to lots of men's programs. Man, to have several hundred men in one place, first-class production. The speakers, man, I'm sitting there listening to them, and I'm one of the speakers, and I'm going, these guys are good.
Yeah.
And I'm just watching the men just soak it up, and they're alive, and they're energized, and it's I had no idea what to expect coming here.
Yeah.
And it's just blown me away.
Yeah, it's learning by immersion. There's a lot going on here, right?
A lot of moving parts, and
Yeah.
you guys have been apparently practicing this every year, and
Yeah.
this year it seems to have really gone to another level.
It gets better and better every year, yeah. When I was in graduate school, someone said to me once, I complained that there was 13 textbooks for one class. And I said, how the hell can I possibly do this reading? And they said, it's the European method of education. And I said, what's that? And they said, if you throw enough shit against the wall, something's going to stick.
Yeah.
So that's what I feel this conference is like. They're just putting so much out there, but if one or two things stick with the attendees, it was worth it, because there is a lot of information. It's rapid fire just all day long.
It is, and I've got my notebook, and with every speaker, I've written down about 2 or 3 lines under each of the speakers of just the key prime stuff. That's good. That's good.
Yeah.
Got to remember that.
Yeah, that's good.
And even referenced several of them in my talk as well today. I'm a guy, and I live this stuff. This isn't just academic. It isn't just a book I wrote.
Right.
It's my life. I'm married. I have kids, stepkids. I have a job. I'm in the world.
Yeah.
And this stuff's real life stuff. And there's a lot of stuff sticking to the wall.
Yeah. I've heard it said, I'm not sure who actually coined the phrase, but the 21 convention and this movement is nothing but men sharing notes.
Good way to put it.
I like that.
That's what I was doing, just making notes and deciding how many of these notes can I share with them in an hour.
You know, a year from now or 2 years from now, someone's going to approach you. They will have seen you live here. They will have seen this interview, listened to your podcast, and a change is going to have been made in their life, and they're going to say, it's because of you. The ripple effect of your data, of your information, of your inspiration. And of course, all of our messages are a combination of education, data, facts, and inspiration. How do you inspire men?
The message that I get back from men is that I'm real. I'm authentic. Now, I would not have been accused of that 30 years ago. I hid everything. I was a people pleaser. I was a nice guy. And I think that's the greatest compliment people give me is that Dr. Glover, you're real. You're authentic. You tell the truth. You live this stuff.
Yeah.
You talk about your struggles. I'm bumbling my way through life like everybody else. And I try to learn as I go, and that's what I share. And I think people really appreciate that it's not like I'm some academic that read it in a book, or I've figured it all out and I've got it all, my life is just perfect. I still work at this stuff every day.
Yeah.
And I think people, men especially, like knowing, this guy's practicing what he preaches. He doesn't get it perfect, but when he falls down, he gets up and tries something new.
What does it mean? Your book is titled No More Mr. Nice Guy. Is there a nice guy syndrome or a nice guy profile?
Well, I do talk about the nice guy syndrome in the book. And basically, just the short version of a nice guy is he's internalized beliefs at a very young age, usually in childhood, usually 3, 4, 5 months old this stuff begins. Internalizing a belief, there's something wrong with me, I'm not okay just as I am. I have to become what I think other people want me to be approved of, to get loved, to get my needs met, and I have to hide the things about me that might trigger a negative reaction in other people. Of course, this is usually parents at a young age. And the most common things that nice guys hide is their needs and their sexuality. And so if you imagine then growing up to be an adult, trying to do whatever it takes to get the approval of everybody around you, and hiding everything about you that might trigger a negative reaction, it leads to a very frustrating lifestyle. And that in a nutshell is nice guy syndrome.
What are the downfalls of being a nice guy?
Well, the first chapter in the book is all about that. Nice guy is actually a misnomer. Nice guys are often anything but nice. Even though we think, and I always thought, I'm a nice guy. I'm one of the nicest people you ever want to meet. Why wouldn't everybody like me? Why wouldn't everybody want to be, the same? But because a nice guy is not fundamentally authentic. He's not being himself. He's fundamentally a lie. He's lying about everything. If he's trying to become, if I try to become what you want me to be so you approve of me, I'm lying. If I try to become what you want me to be, I'm lying. There's no truth there. You can't count on anything. Now, beyond the fact that we're not authentic, and everything we do, in a sense, is a lie because we're trying to get approval, we're hiding things. The other part is because we're not good at getting our needs met, we're not good at letting people give to us, we're not good at surrounding ourselves with people and organizations that can give to us, we tend to build up a lot of resentment. It's like, I give all this and I don't get much back in return. That resentment builds, and we kind of start ruminating about it, and then it either comes out as passive-aggressive behavior, which is indirect anger, maybe a put down, a jab, I'll say I'm going to do it and I don't follow through on it. Or the other is what I call a victim puke, where it just builds and it builds and it builds until we just blow up, and we just say everything that's been ruminating in our brain, and it's usually hurtful and damaging to everybody involved. So these are ways that nice guys tend to not be nice. My ex-wife, who I was married to when I wrote the book, used to say, I'd rather be with an asshole, because at least the asshole, I know he's going to treat me bad all the time. You treat me well, and everybody thinks you're an amazing guy, but then you do this thing to stab me in the back or hurt me or you blow up at me, and I didn't even know you were even bothered by that until you blow up 6 months after the fact. So those are some of the ways that nice guys, unfortunately, are not always so nice.
Very interesting. I worked for many years with top models, many who have become gray, silver, and white hair models, many of the faces that you would recognize. But for years, they would color their hair until the point where they ditched the dye. And when you ask them why they stopped coloring their hair, one of the answers that was common right across the board, it's almost as if they were sharing notes, they would say, I wanted to find my authentic self. So for decades, when they were coloring their hair, they were feeling not authentic. You mentioned being an authentic man. How does a man become authentic? And is there peace in authenticity?
Is there peace in it? Yes. And there's turmoil. I've got a tattoo on my arm of Jesus nailed to a cross. He was authentic, so they say, and he still got nailed to a cross. So, it can attract stuff.
Yeah.
The term from psychology would be differentiation. When a person is differentiated, they're authentic. And I tell guys I work with, being differentiated has two parts to it. The first part is asking yourself, what do I want? What feels right to me? What am I going to do? And you've got to ask yourself that. Most of the time we're lemmings. We go along with the crowd. We do what we think's expected of us. But to be able to ask yourself, what do I want? What feels right to me? That's the first step of being differentiated. The second step is then following through on that and proceeding, even if you get flack from outside, mom, dad, friends, society, church, culture, or the buzz inside your head that's, oh no, I'm gonna get in trouble, I'm gonna be disliked, I'm gonna lose my job, I'm gonna lose my wife. So the differentiation, to be authentic, you've got to be able to ask yourself, what's right for me? And then number two, you got to follow through on that. Is there peace in that? Yeah, because you're not all the time guessing and trying to figure things out and covering this lie and trying to think of, how do I need to be with this person and blah, blah, blah. And, as I said, it can attract some negative attention as well. It always happens. Every great man who's ever lived who was authentic and integrated and differentiated also caught flack. It just comes with the territory.
Let me ask you this. What is the prescription for this nice guy syndrome?
For overcoming it, working through it, or what causes it?
getting rid of it, overcoming it, being healed from it?
Okay, good question. I've told people for years I'm a recovering nice guy, and I'm still working at it. I got married again 2 years ago. It's my third marriage. I thought I'd worked through a lot of the stuff that tends to come up for me in a relationship, and then with a new person, with new personalities and their stuff, I got triggered into some of my nice guy patterns all over again of being too much of a pleaser and a problem solver and avoiding conflict. I watched it come up, and I thought, man, it's like I need to go read my book all over again. And so I went out and got a men's coach. I joined a men's group. The stuff that I prescribe in the book is don't try to do this alone. And it's like we're going to work on this stuff to the day we die. Now, things get better, better, better. My life's amazing. I love my life. I could not have had the life I have now 30 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
It would not have been possible because I live my life on my terms. I tell people I live in Puerto Vallarta, Mexico. I have a beautiful home. It's got a swimming pool. I've got a beautiful wife. She's 22 years younger than me. She wants to have sex all the time. And guys will say, "You're so lucky." And I'll go, no luck involved. Mm-hmm. This was hard work. This was a conscious process. Mm-hmm. Now, it's not like that was my dream to create all of that, but it is what has come to me mm-hmm. by doing the work of living authentically with differentiation, being honest, making my needs a priority, having good boundaries, and just living a life of passion.
There have been common themes all week long. Do the work, be the best version of yourself, right. Make a dent in the universe. How can a man be the best version of himself?
I think the number one prescription I'd give a man to answer that question is go connect with other men who have the same philosophy, who are working on and it doesn't even matter. During my speech, I gave a few different suggestions of where you could find men's programs. They're different, they have different philosophies, but they're about men wanting to evolve. Now, it's not about becoming a different person, and it's really not even about becoming a better person. It's about becoming the best you, right? To live up to your capabilities, your mm-hmm. potential. And I'm 62 years old, and I'm still challenging myself. I've got a commitment, a goal to write 10 books in 10 years. And I mean, at 62, my dad retired at 55. He wasn't interested in being his best self. He was just interested in, okay, I've done that for 30 years, I'm done. I don't know where I'm going to be in 20 years, but I think it'll still be a pretty interesting life.
Who is your ideal client or ideal subscriber, follower, fan? Who do you speak to the most?
Wow, I don't know if I've ever been asked exactly that question. It really is people, and I've heard this a lot at this convention, especially when people find the red pill material. Usually they've had trauma. Something's happened. Now, I find that the men that tend to come to me, either they find my book or they come to a group or a workshop, it's usually they're at some point of frustration, often in relationship. Either they can't get a girlfriend, they don't know how to be with women, how to get a woman to be with them. Maybe they've just had a breakup, a girlfriend, the end of a marriage, or they're out there maybe in their 40s and 50s, out there in the dating world all over again. Mm-hmm. So it's funny that most of the time it is around relationship, mm-hmm. one way or another. Women drive us crazy. We're still trying to figure them out, but that's why I say don't try to figure them out. Set the tone and lead and see if they follow. Mm-hmm. So for me, I think the ideal guy is one who recognizes the tools in my toolbox have not been sufficient. Mm-hmm. I've tried to follow the rules. I followed the prescriptions of my family or my church or my culture, and it just isn't working. And they're ready for something else. They're ready to have new tools added to their toolboxes. They're ready to be challenged. They're ready to get out of their comfort zone. And for me, again, I'll say it again, it's that willingness to connect with other men. And I find that if we can connect with men, our ancestors, our human race evolved in tribes, and now we're also isolated. And I spoke on that this afternoon. We're looking for tribes. So find tribe, connect with men, and then let those men challenge you as you challenge them. Those are the guys I love working with.
I used to say I was an expert at parenting until I had kids. And that challenged everything. And then I found out that I was winging it. And then I had a moment and I don't know when that was, where I took, some men's organizations call it the father wound. Guys typically have something that they hold against their father.
Sure.
And then that gets erased when you have this aha moment of, holy crap, my dad was winging it too. And then all of a sudden, we forgive our fathers, and at that moment, he goes from father to friend, and the relationship changes. Can you speak on that?
I had that experience as well. My mother raised my brother and I to be different from our father. Now, she stayed married to him till he passed away about 9 years ago. And she's since apologized for that. That was not a healthy thing to do to her sons, to say, you need to be different from your dad because he's angry and he's selfish and he's self-centered and he doesn't treat me well. And I bought into her view of my dad. Now, my dad had problems. He had some kind of mood disorder. He could be up and down. He could be in a bad mood for weeks. But I'm also really grateful for my dad. He took me fishing. We went camping. He since I was a kid, one of my earliest memories is like at 5 years old, my first hardball bat and hardball, him pitching to me in the front yard and me hitting it through my parents' bedroom window. So he came to all my ball practices. He was encouraging of that. And so he had his flaws. He was winging it. He was the baby of his family. His oldest brother was 20 years older than him. So he had no guidebook. And I went through a stage of being hurt and resentful at both my parents. I didn't talk to my mom and dad for 15 years. And after a period of time, it's funny, I read an article about baseball. It was the beginning of the baseball season. And there was like some articles in the local paper. And my dad taught me to play baseball, took me to baseball games. And I thought, I've loved baseball all my life. And I wrote him a letter. I don't know if it's an email or a letter. I can't remember now. It's been about 10 years ago or more. And I just thanked him. I said, Dad, I just want to let you know I'm grateful for these things you gave my life. They blessed my life. And about 6 months later, he got back in touch with me. And he only lived like 20 minutes away from me. And he and I started getting together about once or twice a year, really, not very often. We'd go have coffee, have a donut, we'd talk. And I came to the conclusion, and this was so liberating, to realize he was a flawed, broken human being. He was operating at his peak level, and this was all I was going to get from him. This was who he was. And it's like I just made peace with that, that, okay, he wasn't perfect. He was operating at his own peak level. Okay. And there's something about forgiving your dads that helps you forgive yourself as well. And then lets you say, okay, I can be a flawed male as well. I don't have to be perfect, don't have to get it right, don't have to be different from Dad or different from all the other men out there. So that was liberating for me to just have peace. And then he had a stroke and passed away about 2 or 3 years after I'd begun that. I was in his hospital room, his hospice room, every day for about 2 weeks. And I'd kiss him on the cheek. I mean, he was in a coma. I'd say, thank you, Dad. I just thanked him, and emotions coming up about that.
Yeah.
It was a blessing to have made that peace and be grateful for everything he'd given me.
Better late than never.
Yeah.
Can you imagine living life and not having been able to do that with your father?
I'm so grateful that I reached out and said, thank you, Dad, for this.
That's powerful.
And then we had whatever we could have.
Yeah.
Like I said, we reached the limits of what he was capable of. And to be there at his bedside every day and with my mom, watching him die, and just being grateful.
Talking with hundreds of men in my career, I've noticed this one thing. Everyone changes. Doesn't matter who they are, what level of education they are. When they start talking about their father, their face changes. Everything changes when we talk about our dads.
Yeah.
Even when I interview people about their dads, my face changes and things change.
I feel it. I can feel just, the wetness in my eye coming up. And he was a flawed, imperfect. I spoke at his memorial. I was the only one of 4 kids that spoke. The first words I said is that at best, my father could be difficult. Everybody said amen. None of my siblings wanted to speak. But I was at peace with it, and that felt good.
That's neat. George Bruno from the 21 Report, talking with Dr. Robert Glover. How can people find you?
Easy enough. My website's drglover.com. That's drglover.com. And if they just want to Google Robert Glover or Google No More Mr. Nice Guy, I've got the top several spots on both of those pages. So
That's
easy
fantastic.
enough.
Thank you very much. We appreciate it.
Thank you, George. It was great.